Welcome back for another class. We're going to start with all four swimming today. I've assumed you've already done your perfect posture, your warm-up, mobility while you're standing, your spine stretch. You've done your roll down to push up. You're now down on the mat. And after you push up, our first exercise today is going to be our all fours swimming. So I'm just going to move to the side of the mat because I like to slide on the carpet. I'll just move a little bit further forward. Elbows are soft, arms are vertical, so try not to have the arms out in front of you like so. And keeping your shoulders nice and low, I'm going to start by simply just sliding one foot back, keeping as still as I can, breathe in as I come back, and then switching. I'm looking at a spot on the floor, and that spot is probably around here. So if I imagine this line between my hands, I'm looking at the point of a triangle. That's the base of the triangle. I'm looking at the point, and that will keep my head and neck in good alignment. I'm going to add the opposite arm, and I might slide and then lift the leg. Now, whichever one I'm doing, I'm trying to keep my body as still as I can. Keep the hips level, as well as avoiding or minimizing side-to-side movement. You can hold. Breathing out as you stretch out. You can hold it for a full in and out breath. Breathe in as you come back. Just try to stay as still as you possibly can. Keep your hips as level as you possibly can. We're not going to move into extension through that lumbar spine. We're not going to go up into like a donkey kick like I'm doing now, moving into that lumbar extension. And once you've done a little bit of that, we're going to come into our Sphinx next. So, elbows underneath. We're going to listen to our bodies with all of our exercises. We're not going to move into pain or discomfort with anything we do. And I'm lifting up through my pelvic floor muscles. You'll be working through your corset muscles all through the class, of course. And of course, draw your belly button in strongly. So I'm imagining there's a steel spike under my belly button here. My gluteus maximus and hamstrings are relaxed. And in this position here, again, I'm looking between my hands to keep that good alignment through my head and my neck. I'm listening to my body and I'm having a rest when I need to. Interestingly, you can also go into a straight arm version of the Sphinx, which is what I call it. It's the leg pull prone. And you can curl your toes under and straighten one and then the second leg. Elbows are soft and is slightly more vertical, so it's a little bit easier through your abs, but not much. It's still pretty tough. Listen to your body, and when you need a rest, just come back to the floor and have a little child's pose. We're going to roll into our side next for our side kick. I'm just having a squash roll. All right, let's roll into our side. Palm to the ceiling, legs forward to the body about 10 degrees or so, hips are stacked, and we're looking at keeping our shoulders stacked as well. Because of the angle of the video, it looks like this shoulder's a lot further away than this one. So even though my shoulders are stacked and this arm is vertical, it does look a little bit like I'm rolling backwards, but be assured my shoulders are stacked in this position. I'm in the lightning rod position here. I can be aware if I'm dropping that shoulder backwards as I kick the top leg forward. Of course, you can do this with your eyes closed and tune into what you can feel with your body against the floor. And that helps to improve your proprioception, your brain knowing where your body is in space as well. So that's always good to develop that. So I'm aware that I'm not bending or moving the leg closer to the floor, backwards or forwards. I'm not bending at the knees. If you want to make it a little bit harder, you can think of ever so slightly levitating this arm that's underneath you. And you'll find that will increase your instability quite a lot. And that will mean you don't need to kick as far forward with that leg. You may not even need to kick forward at all. And you'll get into these small lumbar multifidus muscles, which are really important. We're going to do our first hip exercise. In fact, we only got the one hip exercise today. It's called hot potatoes. And so for this one, it's a little similar to killer rotations. I'm going to move up a little bit more so you can see exactly what my leg's doing. I can, of course, do exactly the same thing with my arm and get a good workout through my rotator cuff muscles. The arm movement is a bonus. So if you're confused, forget about the arm, just do the leg. Straightening out the top leg, I'm going to internally rotate the leg. So I've rotated it inwards. I'm going to go straight up and down, probably just a few times, maybe 3. I'm going to keep the leg in internal rotation. I'm going to arc the leg forward of the body and continue to do a few taps straight up and down. Then I'm going to arc the leg back in line with the body, and I'm trying to stay as still as I can through my hips all the way up through my torso. After I've done a few in line with the body, again, I'll arc the leg forward. The bigger the arc, assuming you can keep your stability, your stillness, the more you're going to feel it through these gluteal muscles. They're getting a bit of a double whammy, being an internal rotation and abducting the leg, because these gluteal muscles, they do both of those functions. Once I've done a block of, I don't know, half a dozen or so of these, I will then, I'll just finish this one, move into external rotation. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to externally rotate the leg. I can do the same with the arm. And again, straight up and down. And then I'll arc forward and straight up and down. It's not important if you don't reach the floor. And as I said before with the killer rotations, if I did reach the floor with my heel, I would start to move my body. My hips would move and my lumbar spine would move. So I'm just going to do again, maybe a block of half a dozen or so of these. Several in line with the body, arcing it forward, several forward of the body, arcing it back. And once I've done this one, I am going to just relax. We're going to roll onto our back. We'll come onto the other side soon. We're going to do up, up, down, downs, and then we're going to do some scissors today. So, in fact, we've got a lot of scissors today. I'm going to run with scissors for quite a lot of the class. I'm going to float one leg up to coffee table, engage my global abs, bring the second leg up, take a breath in, breathing out, relax that foot to the floor, relax the love handles, and take the second foot to the floor. I'm relaxed through my shoulders and arms. You know there's ways of making this exercise a little bit easier and a little bit harder. Feel free to do those. Rule of thumb, slower is harder. And straighter leg and further away coffee table is harder. You're looking to keep your body still. So if you feel those globals kicking in, just keep them relaxed until you need to use them. Don't dome your tummy. Scissors is the next exercise. Very similar to up, up, down, downs. The only difference is rather than resting the feet on the floor when they come back to the floor, we don't. So I'm going to go back to about 90 degrees or so at the knee. I'm going to float one leg to coffee table, then the second. And you can do this, by the way, just with one leg at coffee table. And I could scissor like I'm doing with just my right leg right now. And just pivoting at the hip, the angle at the knee stays the same. It's like you've got a knee brace on. You can't straighten or bend the knee. And if I had a straighter leg, it would look like that. I've also got a further away coffee table here. All of this can, of course, be done with the second leg coffee table. So I was just going to start off with both legs at coffee table, and I was just going to alternate between legs. It's a little bit easier than doing a block of one leg or the other, which we'll be doing soon. So we're just going to do a couple of sets. The closer I take that heel to the floor, the harder it is. And as I mentioned, straighter leg, further away coffee table, and slower is also harder. Hands on your knees, little round the clock stretch. Have a little bit of a breather. We'll continue with this. How many reps should be in a set? Don't get caught up on the numbers. If you do a more challenging variation, you won't need to do as many. You won't be able to do as many. If you do an easier variation, you'll probably be able to do a few more. But when you need a rest, have a rest. And this is the best way to do it. Resting before you take the feet back to the floor, because you're already fatigued through here. If you try to return the feet to the floor, remember, we try to do that one at a time, by the way, then these muscles are trying to hold on when you're most fatigued. So give them a rest first. Have the round-the-clock stretch or hug the knees up before you return them to the floor. Again, floating one, then the second leg to coffee table. And I'm just going to have both legs just a little bit straighter, slightly further away coffee table. And again, I'm going to alternate between legs. So I'm still coming down all the way to the floor, just touching the floor with my heel, keeping my body nice and still, keeping that angle at my knee pretty much the same. I'm still breathing. It's very hard to talk to you if I wasn't. When I've done enough of those, again, little round the clock stretch, rolling around. And just a reminder, we do have something called the pelvic clocks, where you'll feel the same movement that we're doing now, but your feet would be on the floor and you would just continue with that rotation. So we've done this before, but it's always good to revisit, and it's quite a nice one. And we are going to roll over onto our other side after our next exercise. We've got one more exercise to do first. It's our hip rolls and our knee drops. So I'm just going to slide down so my heels are on the carpet. And I'm going to start off with the knee drops, and keeping my hips perfectly still, I'm going to drop my right knee out to the side as I breathe out, breathe in as I come back in, and then breathe out as I drop the left knee out. Now use your sense of touch. I want you to imagine there's a plate on your tummy, marble right above your belly button. Keep your marble still, keep your stationary knee still, and be aware of what you can feel with your body against the floor. So I can feel the base of my feet, the back of my pelvis and sacrum, and my rib cage, and I don't want to feel like I'm rolling the hips left to right like I'm doing now, where I'm rolling across my sacrum, which is part of my spine beneath the lower back. I'm not rolling across from one side of my pelvis to the other. So I'm keeping this level. I can use my hands to give extra feedback to my brain. I have my eyes closed at the moment so as I can tune in a lot better to what I can feel. And I'll go into my hip rolls now. Now this can be a little bit harder with your arms at sleepwalking. So I'm going to have my arms up here for the moment. And now I'm going to slide out, lengthen out through my heel before I rotate in and slide in. I'm going to swap legs. Now, we could add a slightly different challenge. It's easier in some ways, harder in others. When I drop the knee out to the side, I can also drop the arm out to the side as well. I hold it out there until I start to slide back in. So overall it's harder, but it is easier in some ways. Just one more, and then we're going to roll over onto our other side because we have to do our side kicks on that side as well. So for me, I'm going to be rolling onto my left, just taking my socks off now. I've done all my sliding exercises. So rolling onto my left, palm to the ceiling, legs forward of the body. Get the alignment first, and then engage your corset muscles. We'll breathe into the base of those ribs. If you did the setup at the start of the video prior to doing this video, then you would have already done those things. I'm going to breathe out as I slowly kick that leg forward. You may know, of course, you've got the option of doing the little circles, which if you've done the technique video, we covered that. Again, you can have the arm at lightning rod, and that's just an awareness thing, as I mentioned before. Thinking of levitating that arm. That's really hard. So just be aware you won't be able to kick very far. And even though you're trying to lift that arm up off the floor, you're still going to have contact almost certainly between your upper arm and the mat. It's going to stop you from pushing into the floor, trying to lift up. Just a couple more of these. This is an excellent exercise to get into these small stability muscles. We're going to now do our hot potatoes. Predominantly a gluteal exercise. So internal rotation of the leg. You can add the arm, as I mentioned before. Several taps in line with the body. Then arcing that arm and leg forward as you do several taps in front of the body. And then arcing it back, and you're back in line with the body. I'm just going to change my body alignment so you've got a bit of a better idea of what I'm doing. And I'm going to keep my head in good alignment so I won't be looking down towards my feet and the camera. Doing it slower is harder. So after this one, I'm going to go into external rotation. So I'm going to externally rotate. Hips stayed still. I'm not reaching the floor now. Arc forward. Arc back in line with the body. I'm not generally bringing that leg behind the body at all with this exercise. And when I finish these few, I'm going to move into my pretzel stretches, and I recommend you do the same. So stretching out, we've got several ways, of course, of stretching through the hip region. The main one for these gluteals is that one where I draw the knee in and push the other one away. And I'm getting an absolutely brilliant stretch through there right now. It's uncomfortable, but a nice uncomfortable. I call it therapeutic. Keep breathing. You shouldn't be holding your breath. Sometimes the best part of doing the hip work is actually being able to do these stretches afterwards. When these muscles get tight, they can actually create some soreness through your lower back. In fact, any muscles that attach to your pelvis when they're tight, especially if they're unbalanced, one stronger or tighter than the other side, will create issues with your lower back. Remember, you can draw that knee up towards your opposite shoulder. I'll show you another way of stretching out through these gluteal muscles in just a moment. We're getting into the deep lateral rotators more now. I'm going to swap sides. So that's actually the only hip exercise we're going to be doing today, but feel free to do one of the other ones we've done. We've done pure clams, we've done basic clams, and we've done killer rotations. So you've got a few now to choose from. Now when we do our spinal rotations, and I'm going to spin around on my mat so you can see a little bit better, we normally would drop the knees out to the left, roll the head to the right, and then we'd come back on the next in-breath. But what you can do is I've dropped my knees to the left, I can pick up my left foot and place it on the knee, and I can add the weight of my left arm and actually sink a bit deeper into this stretch. Now I'm feeling this stretch not just through the side of my hips, but also through the side of my lower back waist area, and muscles like quadratus lamborum and my obliques are getting a lovely stretch. When I come out of this stretch though, I want to use the hand on that side to assist and lift the legs up before I return that foot to the floor, and then I can go to the other side. Immediately I'll do a comparison between left and right. So I've dropped my knees to the right, I'm going to pick my right foot up, place that ankle on top, and again I can add the weight of the right arm. So when I do come out of this stretch, again, I'm going to use my right arm to lift the legs up. Otherwise you're asking the same muscles that are getting a stretch to draw you back. And, well, we've just given them a stretch, we've put them a bit to sleep, we really don't want to be doing that to them. So let's draw them back up, and we'll move on to our next exercise. So we're going back to scissors again. So with scissors, last time we were alternating between legs. We're not going to alternate this time, and in fact, I'm going to give you an option of making it a little bit more challenging, which you may or may not choose to take. Floating the legs up, I'm going to push my left knee a little bit further away, and I'm actually now going to push my right leg a lot further away. I'm going to scissor with the straighter of the two legs. You could have left this where it was, by the way, if you didn't want to make it this much harder. I'm going to scissor just with the right leg. So immediately I've made it harder in 3 different ways. 1, further away coffee table here. 2, straighter leg combined with further away coffee table with this leg. And 3, the same leg over and over again. I'm doing a block. I'm going to work through one sling of obliques a lot more than the other. When I have done enough with this leg, I'll have a rest, a little round the clock stretch, and then I'll switch. The curve under my lower back is not changing whatsoever. I can use my hands to check on that. I'm not doming my tummy. And when I want to rest, again, have a breather. You may then return the legs one at a time back to the floor, or you can find your neutral pelvis without doing so, because you can feel what it feels like. And again, both legs are at coffee table, this leg a bit further away, this one a lot further away, and I'm going to scissor with the straighter of the two legs. Good. So keep your stability. I can feel these global abdominal muscles working a lot harder as the leg goes away, and a little bit less as they come back in. And we'll have a little round the clock stretch. From memory, we've got some shoulder bridge rolls coming up next, but I will check my class plan. We do indeed have shoulder bridge roll next, and then, believe it or not, we're going back to scissors again. So shoulder bridge roll. So feet are flat on the mat, and I'm going to initiate, as usual, with my gluteus maximus and hamstrings, my hip extensors, and I'll just work through the lumbar spine initially, flattening out through that imaginary sponge under your lower back. Take a breath in, and then rolling back to neutral. Feet, knees, hip width apart, feet stay flat, but get that feeling that you're pushing them away from you. to initiate the movement. So start off with doing several of these smaller shoulder bridge rolls, just the lumbar region. Excellent for helping to relax and release through these little muscles through the lower back area. Make it smooth, make it flowing. As my hips start to peel off the floor, I do engage my gluteus maximus more. Remember, your corset muscles are working with all of the exercises. The only time I tend to switch them off during class is with some of the stretches. I'm going to come all the way up to my ski slope, one vertebra at a time. It's like my spine is a bicycle chain, and I'm lifting one link at a time, then I return one link at a time back to the floor, rolling back to neutral. As I work through the lumbar spine, I lay one link of that bicycle chain down onto the floor at a time before I then lift up one link at a time. I can add my double arm drop on the in-breath. Don't pop the ribs either as you take the arms overhead or as you bring the body back to the floor and then bring the arms back to the floor. So just take your time, moving through pain-free movement. If coming all the way to the full ski slope is problematic, then don't come all the way to the full ski slope. When you finish doing that, we are going to go back into our scissors, and like we did a moment ago, we're going to have one leg a bit further away, one a bit straighter. This time it's this leg that's going to do the scissoring. You can do quite a small movement. You don't have to go all the way to the floor. If you want to cheat a little bit, you can use your hands to help support the other leg, the stationary leg. This is a little bit harder than the previous variation we did. And for many of you, you didn't need to make it harder. So be aware, you don't have to do this one. You go back and regress to an easier variation. Again, I'm working through one sling of obliques more than the other, but both slings diagonally across me are working hard. When I've done enough, again, hug the knees up towards my chest. So for our global abs today, my main focus has been this exercise, the scissors. So again, this leg's a bit further away, this one's a lot further away, this one will be stationary, this one will be the one scissoring. Take your time. Slowing the exercise down is what will generally make it a lot harder. You're probably happy to know this is our last set of scissors for the day. And again, a little round the clock stretch. Or returning the feet to the floor and continuing on with your pelvic clocks. We've got a couple of exercises on our side next, starting off with the thread the needle right angle triangle. Then we'll move into our chest release. So we are going to go into our right angle triangle, thread the needle. When I do the thread the needle, I always do it on a bent arm. It's not one of the variations I do with a straight arm. So we can do it straight-legged though, which is quite a bit harder. So getting your alignment. So right now my elbow is too far away. And right now you might say, oh, look, that looks okay. The arm's relatively vertical, but I haven't locked the shoulder down. So lock the shoulder down, elbow underneath. I'm going to just take my legs a bit further away to make it a little bit more challenging. I'm going to lift up. I've got that lovely hypotenuse. I've got that lovely curve of my lower back. Bring my arm up to the lightning rod. And as I breathe out, I'm going to look over my shoulder as a thread under the armpit. And my spine is rotating around that broomstick handle or that goal post that's just touching the back of my head all the way down to my tailbone. Rotation-wise, we're trying to rotate initially through the shoulder, working our way down our spine. Hips will come along for the ride towards the end. The lumbar back and the pelvis will move pretty much at the same time. There's not a lot of rotation through your lumbar spine. You can do the straighter legged variation. If you do, I'm going to move up so you can see what my feet are doing. Top foot is just in front of the other one. And if I did continue rotating, I would end up rotating into a one-arm Sphinx position, which many of you are going to go, that's really hard. And that's because it is. When you have finished doing that, we're going to stay on our side and do our chest release. Again, always looking to get my alignment. Get the correct posture for everything that you do. I'm going to breathe in. I'm going to guide the head as I focus on the rib cage rotating. Breathing in and breathing out. Length through the crown of my head. So I'm always trying to think of that spine being nice and long. We want long, strong muscles with Pilates. Length and strength. I'm going to straighten out that arm. I'm going to do the circular variation of my chest release today. So again, like the previous exercise, we're still focusing on thoracic rotation. The rib cage is actually opening up with this one, whereas with thread the needle, it closes up. If you are circling, you might be adding the rotation like I'm doing, and of course you will need to change directions at some point in time, as I have. And we'll continue with some lovely movement with our swan dive next, rolling onto our tummies. Let yourself sink into the mat, forehead resting into the mat. Draw your hips up. Imagine there's thumbtacks under your belly button. Lower back is relaxed as you extend through your neck. And you can start the movement just with a small movement, like we did with our shoulder bridge roll, and then return to the mat on the in-breath. So starting off with maybe just a few of the smaller movements before we go into our full spinal extension. Let that forehead sink into the mat. Take any tension out of your spinal extensors, especially the lower back. I'm going to come up into a more extended position this time and work through my hips as well. Relaxing down through the hips, through the lumbar spine, and let my forehead rest into the mat. I'm going to add external rotation of my shoulders. I'm still drawing my belly button away from the floor. And I'm going to finish this one and have a little child's pose. And once I've done that, I'm going to go over onto my other side, and we're going to do our thread the needle right angle triangle on this side as well. I'm going to start off with the bent knee version, like I did on the other side. Take your time, breathing out as you look over the shoulder and as you feed the hand under the armpit. Keep that shoulder locked down, that elbow pretty much vertical. I'm sharing my weight not just through the elbow, but all the way through my forearm down to my wrist. And we did have that particularly challenging variation, which I don't find easy. Not many people will. If you do find it easy, just keep it to yourself because you're just showing off. Knees are soft, so we don't lock the knees or the elbows out under load with any exercise in Pilates. And in fact, I can't think of any exercise where I'd want to do it outside of Pilates either. We're going to do our chest release next. Length through the crown of the head. Focus on that rotation of the rib cage. And once again, I'm going to do the circles. And a reminder, as your shoulder rolls backwards and downwards, so too will the back of your head. So if you were lying with your head on a pillow, it'd be a tapered pillow and it would be getting quite thin as you get to this position. And be a bit thicker, depending on how big your shoulders are in this position. So once I finish doing this particular exercise, it's shoulder bridge lift, and then we're finished. So this is our final exercise for today. We'll do a bit of sacroiliac joint mobility straight after this. Your spine is almost like a slab of concrete, and you're just going to pivot onto the top of the shoulder blades as you squeeze your bottom muscles, and we can come up and down. If you want to add the extra challenge, you can kick a leg out, and then you could also come up and down. Now coming all the way down to the mat like I'm doing, my hip bones are touching simultaneously, and that's quite tough. I can then swap legs. I might come all the way back to the floor like I've just done, and then swap, or I could swap when I'm at ski slope. My hips are staying level as I go up and as I come down. You could, of course, just hold your ski slope position and alternate between legs. Or you could do one leg over and over again. If you were to check on your glute max, you'd notice as you kick out, that glute max relaxes. But the other one is doing the opposite of relaxing. It's working really hard. I might just do a little bit of spinal rotation, and then I'm going to move into my sacroiliac joint mobility exercise to finish our class. So again, focusing on that mobility. And I'm going to straighten out my legs. And this is the one where I'm pushing one hip and leg away as I draw the other hip and leg in. And then I'd slowly switch. My pelvis like a seesaw. And what I can also do is add some lateral flexion. So as I bring this hip up, I'm going to bring this rib down to meet it. So I'm crunching now the left-hand side of my body, lengthening the right-hand side, and then I can do the opposite. So I'm focusing on what's called the frontal plane or the coronal plane, and I'm not rotating or tipping water out of the front or the back of my bowl or popping the rib cage. I'm just working in that single plane of movement, the left to right plane. And that's all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the class. I'll be back with you hopefully in a few days' time. See you next time.